Hey everybody, and today we're focusing on how to paint the Gretchen or the grots for your orc armies. For this, I'm going to paint this grot in the scheme of the evil sunz, but of course, this will work for any other paint scheme that you got. So for this, we're going to start off with some of the red. For evil sunz, for this we're going to use Blood Angels Red. And the reason why I'm going to use contrast paints for this is because you need very small brushes if you're doing the classic method, and since you're going to get a lot of Gretchen, I'm going to show you how you can paint up the grots up to very quickly. Shake up the contrast paint. Okay, so, and always make sure to use the proper brush. So for this, I'm going to get some Blood Angels Red. And put some on my palette. Right here, and that's all you need. Because for grots, for evil sunz, they don't really need much red. So, take some paint. So, we're going to focus on the mask that he's wearing right here. And for evil sunz, they are one of the few orc clans that has a bright colored armor. And you can also paint the pants if you want. But we're going to leave the pants a different color. And also for the twine on the mask, we're going to paint the back here with the red as well. Okay. That's the red done. Alright, so you may notice I hit some parts with the red by accident, but don't worry, we're going to fix that right now. Let me just make sure I got off the contrast paint off my brush. Always make sure you get all your contrast paint off the brush, or else you contaminate your other paint. Okay, so now for this we're gonna fix up a couple of mistakes. So right here, we're gonna pick some Cordax white. Oh, sorry about that, Cordax white. And we're gonna fix where I hit it with the red on the skin. So just right here. You don't need much, just very gently. There we go, that's fixed. Alright, before we move on to the skin, we're gonna do a different part now. So, what we're going to do is we're going to basically do what we call like other finishing painting. So for this, we're focusing on the weapon first while waiting for that skin and color to dry. For the blunderbuss weapon, where is it? Where is it? For the blunderbuss wooden, we're going to use grot fur. Grot fur is basically named after the little hog riders that they would have for the orc war clans in Age of Sigmar. Alright. Take some grot fur and put on your palette. Always make sure you're using a proper size brush. So for this, all I'm going to do is going to paint just on the wood of the weapon. For this right here. And don't worry if you get any of this color on the gun, we're going to paint a different color later. One more paint. Also on the bottom of the weapon, always make sure. Alright, that's the wood of the weapon done. Okay, so now we're going to focus on one poor different area before we start on the skin. The reason why, so we're letting our skin tone dry. So for this, all we're going to do is we're going to apply a nice coat of snakebite leather. So you can call this the contrast method, but the reason why I'm using contrast paints is because orcs are a horde army, so I wanted to show you how you can quickly paint your grots. Okay, so take some snakebite leather. Make sure you shake up your contrast paints, or else it'll dry really shiny, and you don't want that at all. So, snakebite leather. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to paint the clothing. For this, grots pretty much just come shirtless, but some have shirts. So for this, we're going to go with the pants. That's all. And also, one little trivia fact that many people don't know is that orcs are one of the few armies that don't have gold in their paint schemes. I mean, you can if you want a custom paint scheme, but you know. All right, there we go. That's the pant. Wait, hold on. Sorry. There we go. That's the pants done. Always make sure you wash off all your brushes really good, because you have contrast remnants, and if you have one of those, it will really ruin your paint job. So always make sure to wash it out. All right, now we're going to go on the fun bit, painting the skin. So for this, for the grots, you could of course use any color you want, like for your same tone for your orcs. But for this, I'm going to go with a good old classic, really yellowish tone. For this, we're going to go with Plague Bear Flesh. Usually Plague Bear Flesh is usually used on the Plague Bears for Nurgle, but don't worry, Plague Bear Flesh also looks good on orcs and the Gretchen. I'll show you why. So, take the Plague Bear Flesh, shake it up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so for this I'm going to grab a different brush. Let me just find it real quick. We're going to use a medium layer brush by Citadel. But of course, if you're using a different brush, just make sure it's about the right size. So, for this, we're going to go all over the skin. So for this, we're going to start off with the feet, just to make sure. So, we're going to focus right here on the hands. Top of the head, and finally on the front of the head. Alright, there you go. That's the skin done. So, okay, for now with the skin done, now we're all going to focus on the finishing parts. For this, we're going to be focusing on the metal. For this, it may not have much metal, but don't worry, I'll show you where. So, for this, all we're going to do is we're going to apply, let me get my smaller brush. I just want to make sure. For this, we're going to use a good old classic silver. For this, we're going to use lead belcher. Okay, so, take your lead belcher. Alright. No need to shake it up, so put it back. Alright, so we're going to paint this on the metal. So there's a little knife on his back. And he carries on his waist. You can also paint the handle with this color because they don't really care. And don't worry if you don't want to shade your miniature, you have to shade your miniature. And don't worry about making it too neat because grots, like the Death Guard, grots are very nasty, are very dirty and nasty. And this part is metal right here. Sorry about that. Could be a little grenade, yes. Okay, there we go. Alright, now we're going to do something strange. For this, while the silver is drying, we're going to apply a different thing. We're going to add a layer. For this, we're going to use Iron Breaker. So, what we're going to do, take the same brush, a little bit of Iron Breaker, put it on the palette, make sure not too much. So, all we're going to do is just going to grade on the sides. So that way we have a nice gradation. See? And it has a nice little subtle effect. See? Alright, so that's that. We're not going to apply a shade to the metal just yet because we're going to wait that till last. Okay, you can leave your skin right here and it'll be ready. But for this, we're going to apply something a little more different. We're going to apply a shade, Biltang Green. And you may be wondering, why not just use a plague bear flesh? Well, I would. It's just so for those of you that want more of a green, more of a greenish, disgusting approach. Shake up your Biltang Green. Very good. Oops, just making sure it's open. All right, for this, we're gonna take, just gonna take this brush. So, take some Biltang Green, put it on the palette. So for this, all we're gonna do is gonna put it all over the skin. So right here, all over the hands. And if you notice with the plague bear flesh, it's also getting a nice green tone. Alright, so there we go. And this bracelet is basically just, you can just leave white or just metal. Alright, and there we go. With the Biltang Green applied, it has a nice greenish yellow tone. And always make sure it doesn't pull to the recesses like that. Alright, last thing we're going to do is add a shade. For this, another shade. For this, we're going to use, where is it? We're going to use a good old classic wash of Nolan oil. Keep in mind this is the new Nolan oil, and if you have the new one, don't worry, that's just fine. Check up your washes like always. Okay, with the Nolan oil shaken up. So for this, take some Nolan oil. All we're gonna do is we're gonna apply the metal on the gun, on the blunderbuss, on the grot blaster, and then for this, we're also going to apply it to the grot grunter fur, just to add a little, just to mute it down a little bit and make it look more natural. Same for the pants. So that way it looks nice and dirty, and also on the knife on the back, and the silver on the grenade right here. Reason why we're adding Nolan oil to the pants and the gun is so we make it look natural, and also grots, like all the orc armies, are very dirty. And for this, we're going to apply this onto the mask as well, for the mask as well. Okay, and one last thing, we're going to paint the eyes of the grot. For the eyes, all we're just going to need is going to use a red. For this, you don't need a very bright red. All we're going to use is Wisdacker red. Shake up your paint. Makes it good choking up. For this, you're going to need a very fine brush. So for this, I'm going to use a 5-0 brush. All we're going to do, dot in the eyes. So if you look where the eye is, there we go. All right, there we go. All right, there we go. That's our Gretchen. That's our Gretchen for the evil sunz done. All right, so I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want more painting tutorials on grots, I highly recommend watching Warhammer TV. But of course, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Bye bye.